African countries want those who have historically contributed and benefited most from climate change to commit to doing more to assist Africa adapt to clearer sources of energy. Minister for Forestry, Fisheries and Environmental Affairs Barbara Creecy said the issue of Africa's special needs and circumstances was not on the original Paris Agreement agenda, but that the discussions were held for Africa at COP27 to be hosted. For Africa, Africa was on the agenda this time. Government is also exploring ways to utilize the 130 billion rand donated by superpowers for the country's transition from coal to renewable energy. For more on the outcomes of the COP26 climate talks, we're joined via Zoom by South Africa's climate change Chief Negotiator from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, Maesela Kekana. A very good day and thank you so much for making the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Desiree, and good day to your listeners too.
Even before Minister Creecy could make her way to Glasgow, South Africa was already in the news for securing or being part of that $130 billion commitment from developed countries in the quest to wean off countries of the reliance from coal-powered energy. What are the details and time frames of this pledge?
Desiree, I think the minister yesterday, Minister Creecy, explained that the 131 billion is an offer from some of the developed countries, but the next step is then to set up a finance task team that would work with the people who made this offer. To iron out those sort of details. We want to know how much of that is grant funding, how much is concessional funding, and so forth and so forth. So those details are still missing. It's yet to be worked out by the two teams.
So on the one hand, you have this offer, and on the other hand, you have a South Africa that's still trying to grapple with the energy strategy that's just come out of the Mineral Resources Department, and naysayers who are saying South Africa is too far off from 2030 in terms of transitioning. How are we handling these conversations, these different conversations?
Well, I wouldn't want to talk on behalf of DMRE, but what I can tell you is that we have put forward as a country, as South Africa, a plan, a 2030 plan, what we call the nationally determined contribution ahead of COP26. And the plan indicates that we aim to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions within a trajectory range which is compatible to limiting temperatures to 1.5 degrees. And we will primarily be working in the electricity sector, in the automotive sector. So all those details are within this plan. But to come up with the nationally determined contribution, we had to look at what is already on the table in the country. And that then gave us clear projections on how to pitch our NDC. So we are aligned. As far as we are concerned, we will be able to reach the targets that we put forward in that NDC.
That COP26 declaration on accelerating transition to 100%, how realistic is this for South Africa?
Come again?
The declaration coming out of COP26 at the closing of the event, where countries were committing to eventually transition to 100% away from fossil fuels. To renewables, okay. How realistic is this for South Africa?
Okay, no, I got it. One of the key outcomes of the Glasgow Climate Conference was an agreement to focus our engagements or to focus our actions on limiting temperature increases to 1.5 degrees. We therefore agreed that countries need to put forward plans that would be aligned to that. And part of that was to say that we also need to start phasing down coal and inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. So for us, that is quite aligned with what we already have within the IRP 2019. So as far as the country is concerned, we accept that outcome. The other key outcome was around the financing for this transition, which is, I think, what you're alluding to, the delivery of the $100 billion US by developed countries to developing countries. This was meant to start in 2020, but did not reach that level. So they put forward a roadmap that says they will deliver either in 2022 or latest 2023. At the same time, we put forward a process to check the delivery of that finance, what we call the long-term climate finance discussions. They will go on until 2027. We want to track whether this 100 billion is really being delivered or is just a talk as it is up to now.
What strategy does the department have for current coal production, the value chain in South Africa? It's a massive industry that you're trying to phase out.
Well, I suppose that again falls within the DMRE space. So I would not have the details from that side. Mm-hmm. But you must also remember that a country has also set up the Presidential Climate Commission, which is also looking at those sort of issues, the just transition, the pathways. How are we going to transition from where we are to the next stage where we want to go? So that does not necessarily fall within our department.
There's a big appetite to bring along everyone in this conversation because most of the conversations are higher grade and don't include a small business person who sells magwinya and has to use gas to make those on the street, and the conversation about fossil fuels it just goes over their head. How do we bring everybody on board?
Well, I guess that is where the issue of just transition comes in, making sure that no one is left behind. And therefore, it means it is quite important for our commission, Climate Change Commission, to finalize those plans so that everyone could be in the picture in terms of the path that we are going to follow. So it is imperative for the Commission to accelerate the work, and I think they're doing the best that they can, which of course would involve everyone.
So in your assessment, how was South Africa's participation in Glasgow? Has it yielded the country any benefits?
Oh, yes. South Africa participated actively in Glasgow. There were several issues that are quite important to our country. The first one, we know that as much as we are not emitting a lot of greenhouse gas emissions on a global scale, we are, however, impacted by the climate changes. And therefore, it is important that we start building resilience for our communities and societies. So we pushed the issues of adaptation. And finally, after 6 years of negotiations, we came to an agreement that we should have a work program on these issues because they're important to us. It's about securing the future of our societies. So we're quite happy with that. But equally important is this whole notion of climate finance. We've seen increased pledges to the Adaptation Fund, for example, which is where we draw resources to implement these particular adaptation measures. So we are quite happy as a country with the outcome.
We hope you can come back to have regular conversations, as this is an ongoing global conversation. But Maesela Kekana, the Chief Negotiator from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, just giving us an update of South Africa's participation in the just ended COP26 gathering in Glasgow. Let's take a break. You're watching The Agenda.